Today we will do chapter 14 and 15. So, just 1 minute. So, what type of bhakti are we discussing? Till now, what have we discussed? What is it? What is it called? You can tell me.
Bhagavad Vidhi,
Bhagavad Vidhi. Yeah,
hearing
you're
and
right.
chanting.
You're right, but in specifically in regards to nectar of devotion, we talked about
Sadhana
different.
Bhakti,
Which bhakti is that?
Sadhana Bhakti.
Sadhana bhakti. Yes, we're doing sadhana bhakti. So sadhana bhakti has two parts to it. We discussed that. So it's Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. So till 14th chapter, as this chart shows us, it's about Vaidhi Bhakti. And then from 15th onwards, on 15, 16, it's Raganuga Bhakti, and then that Bhava and Prema. So we are only doing 19 chapters for Nectar of Devotion. So yes, we'll finish off with Vaidhi Bhakti today. Yes. So yes, Sadhana Bhakti
Prabhu,
has two.
before
Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhu, before we continue, I had a small doubt on the open book exam that you had given. Uh,
Yes.
so you have talked about the significance of five most important items of sadhana bhakti, right? Chapter 11 and 12. So in chapter 11 and 12, there are so many items, Prabhu, visiting Mathura and all that. So out of that, we have to take out the five, or we have to refer in the chapter 13 where it is very clear what are the five elements, which we already just now heard about
Yes, so
recitation of
if you
Srimad
see,
Bhagavatam.
let's just go back a minute and I'll show you. So, yeah, so
I
this
just got
was this
confused
chapter
because
30. Chapter
yes,
13 is specifically
the five,
for the
yeah.
five, yes. So,
You had asked about looking into 11th and 12th. So I got little confused because
oh,
11th and
okay.
12th, there are a lot of elements, not only this, right?
Yeah.
Hearing, like associating with the pure devotees,
Hmm. Okay. No,
recitation.
these are the five I'm referring to, which are the
Oh,
13
these are
chapter.
the five. Okay.
I gave
Got
11,
it.
12 because some of these aspects are also discussed
Yeah,
in
in the 11th and 12th.
11, 12
Yes,
also.
yes.
But yes, I
Got
was
it.
talking specifically about these five.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, I got it, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome. So yes, so today, as I was saying, so we'll wrap up with the Vaidhi Bhakti section, and then we'll go into the Raganuga Bhakti section. Okay. So Prabhupada, for this 14th chapter, Prabhupada starts with a concept of knowledge and renunciation. So it's Jnana and Vairagya. And we have read about this earlier also, the Jnana and Vairagya concept. We have in fifth chapter we discussed this about what is Falgu Vairagya and what is Yukta Vairagya. We discussed a bit of that. And Prabhupada is starting with this important statement that some people think that knowledge and renunciation lead to devotional service. But Prabhupada is saying, no, we don't. Knowledge and renunciation are not an important aspect of bhakti. Right? So it's actually the other way around. We are told in the first canto, second chapter, uh, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janyat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Yachat Ahitukam. That bhakti eventually leads to, it means like these things come by themselves. You don't have to endeavor for them, right? So in the beginning, they're okay, but later on, they're not important for us. So Prabhupada is establishing this fact. And in a broader sense, Prabhupada is establishing that we have um, we have discussed these 64 items, right? And towards the end of the last chapter, there was a discussion. Where was that? Or was it 12th chapter? I'm just going to see. Where was it? Oh no, it was the last. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm mixing up. I wanted to see something. Okay, yes. So this is the 13th chapter. Towards the end, Rupa Goswami and Prabhupada, they bring out this concept about Varnashrama system. And that Varnashram system is not a part of sadhana bhakti. Okay, right? So there are other aspects. So what the way Rupa Goswami is arranging the book is he's talking about sadhana bhakti. When he's talked at length about sadhana bhakti or Vaidhi bhakti, he's saying that somebody can question this. Okay, how does this fit in with other aspects like Varnashrama system, right? And then so we are told by Rupa Goswami that Varnashram system is not needed for bhakti. Right? And we know that Mahaprabhu also, he rejected this identification with any ashram or varna. There's that famous statement he makes, right? Naham vipro, nacha narpati, na pi vaishya na shudro, naham varni, nacha grahapati, na vanastho yatirva. So he's saying that I'm nothing, right? I'm not Vaishya, Shudra, I'm no Varna, I'm not a Grasta, I'm not a Vanprastha, right? But then he says, Kintu Prodyan Nikhila Paramananda Purnamritadher Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Das Das Anudas. So so Rupa Goswami has kind of kicked off a discussion point that what about these other aspects of which are supposedly related to bhakti and people practice them. So Varnashram was one of them. And here Prabhupada is starting the discussion and Rupa Goswami is starting the discussion with another thought that about Gyan and Vairagya. And Prabhupada is rejecting that also, Rupa Goswami, that Jnana Vairagya, we're not dependent on Jnana Vairagya. As we see that greatest devotees were, many of the greatest devotees were from the so-called social lower caste. Haridas Thakur. And so somebody like him. But then all that is disregarded with that verse that Mahaprabhu gives, that he's just a dasa dasa anudas, right? So Jnana Vairagya are also not included in the 64 items. So somebody can question us, but then, oh, what do you mean that Jnana and Vairagya are not important in spiritual path? Well, they are important in spiritual path, conventional spiritual paths, but we are doing bhakti yoga. So Jnana and Vairagya are not integral to bhakti. They can be helpful, but not always. But for other groups like impersonalists, these are important, Jnana and Vairagya. Okay? So, and we know that Jnana leads to renunciation, but for us, all these things come by themselves when we do devotional service. And we notice that in today's world, the way the world is designed, you may think that jnana would naturally lead to detachment, and that's a good thing. So, like for example, we see that how to say, when a devotee learns about this material world's temporary nature, that devotee will simplify his lifestyle to focus on Krishna consciousness. Then a scientist, if the scientist realizes that even the most scientific advancements cannot stop death, then they will surrender to a spiritual wisdom. A wealthy person will understand that material possessions, they don't bring any inner fulfillment. So then they will learn to use that wealth in devotional service or renounce that wealth. For example, Jim Carrey, I heard an interview by Jim Carrey, who's a famous comedy artist in Hollywood. He said that I wish everybody becomes a millionaire so that they know that there is nothing there. It's not like what people think that millionaires are happy. It's nothing. There's no happiness there. So he said that, right? And the contrary, nowadays, jnana is not leading to vairagya, right? People get advanced degrees, and what do they do with that? They enhance their material pursuits, right? High-paying jobs, luxurious lifestyle, social prestige, and so forth. Right? I may study technology, artificial intelligence. I may study medicines to improve human health. What is that leading me to? It's engrossing. I'm using that knowledge to enhance personal comforts, right? Then, if I get financial knowledge, for example, I invest, trying to gain money from stock market, and when a doctor understands the human anatomy and the inevitability of death, but they don't accept the temporary nature, they often become obsessed with prolonging life at any cost, developing attachment to bodily existence. Many years ago, I used to work on a medicine which was, I'm talking about 12 years ago. Each injection was costing around $3,000, And that injection was only prolonging the life of the cancer patients by 3 months. In a clinical trial, that's what they had found. But people were ready to pay those $3,000 per injection per month just to live 3 months more. So it's not, Gyan does not always lead to Vairagya. So when you look at it from this perspective, you can understand that devotional service, Gyan is not needed, because we have seen that in real world, Gyan does not necessarily lead to Vairagya. But whereas in Bhakti Yoga, the Gyan, when knowledge is received in the right spirit, it should lead to detachment. That is why when Bhakti is done in the proper aspect, then we automatically get Vairagya. Krishna is hungry for devotion, right? We express our love through serving him. So our analytical understanding and appreciation is demonstrated through devotion and service. So whereas Vairagya, as we have seen in this material world, it actually leads to pleasure-searching propensity. And that pleasure-searching propensity makes us look for alternative sources of pleasure other than Krishna. And then that leads to illusion and so forth. Right? I think we talked about the 4 categories of people. There are people who are attached to Maya, but detached from Krishna. So they are materialist. Okay? So attached to Maya, detached from Krishna. Some people are detached from Maya, but attached to Krishna. Those are bhaktas, devotees. But there are people who are attached to Maya also, and they're attached to Krishna also. They become sahajiya. They pretend that, oh yes, I'm a gopi, I'm enjoying, don't trouble me. There are some people who are detached from Maya also and detached from Krishna also, and those are the impersonalists. So Jnana can be beneficial for bhakti, and it can be detrimental to bhakti also. So whether Gyan leads to Vairagya or not is going to be dependent on 3 things. Those 3 things are um, intention, that's one. What is the intention? What is the goal? Then what is that Jnana made up of? What is the constitution? What is the constitution of that Jnana? And then destination, where does that Jnana take us? So if it's favorable for us, the intention of that Jnana would be to teach us that Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan and I am his servant. So we are Mayadhin and Krishna is Mayadhish. Mayadhin means I'm subservient to Maya, I'm under the influence of Maya, and Krishna is Mayadhish, he's the master of Maya. Right? And then the Gyan would be made up of pastimes and glories of Krishna. And where would it take us? The spiritual world, where we will have a loving relationship with Krishna and his associates. If the Gyan is not favorable, for example, in cases of impersonalists, their intention is to become one with God. Right? They minimize the difference between themselves and God. Right? And then the constitution, what is it made up of? It's made up of very dry knowledge. They're just trying to do austerities. Their heart becomes dry. And their destination is just liberation. Right? So Prabhupada is starting with this fact and just wanted to establish more on it. And further on, Prabhupada goes on to explain that how some people, they do mental speculation, austerities, but that may be favorable for becoming liberated from material contamination, but it makes their heart harder, as I was saying, that their constitution becomes a hard heart, and that prevents them from progressing in bhakti. So that's what we're starting with. And then Prabhupada quotes from Shastra, or Rupa Goswami quotes from Shastra. The first thing they bring out is that Krishna himself saying in Bhagavad Gita that one can understand me only through devotional service. Yes. Which verse does Krishna say that in Bhagavad Gita? That you can know me only through devotional service. For 100 points. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Am I audible? I thought, did you guys lose me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, but
Oh, you
we're
can.
thinking about it.
Okay, please think. No problem. No problemo.
Oh my God! Is it 10:10 or 15:15?
No problem. No.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give a hint. It comes in the 18th chapter.
I got chapter 12.
18th chapter. And yeah, towards the second half of the chapter. So I'll give you a lot of clues.
It's the Bhaktayam Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ, something like that. Yeah, starts.
Don't say like that. Those something like that. You should know these verses. Yes, you're right. You were the right way. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yash chashmi tatvatah. Tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tat anantaram. That's the 18.55 verse. So if you didn't know that, please note it down somewhere. Somebody can ask you that where does Krishna say that he's only can be known by devotionals? So, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Janati means know, mam means me, bhaktya means devotional service. So it's very clear, even if you don't know the translation, but the words themselves are very clear. So only by bhakti we can know Krishna, right? So Prabhupada is starting by, and Rupa Goswami is starting with that thought in mind. And then there are other references that have been given where Rupa Goswami is elaborating on this principle that all these other aspects, renunciation, speculation, they do not give bhakti to anybody, right? And then when a person becomes my devotee, he automatically gains all those things, right? Vedeshu yaggeshu tapashu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atetiya sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthana upechi chatyam. That all the effects of Vedeshu yaggeshu Veda yagya Vedeshu yaggeshu daneshu chaiva, all the other things that we do, that's the last verse of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that all the effect of everything is available in devotional service, right? So then Rupa Goswami gives some more examples. Okay, actually a person who is developing Krishna consciousness and still has some attachment to material enjoyment will soon be freed from such a tendency by regularly discharging devotional service under the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master. So this is a very motivating point that has been brought here, that even though we are not fully given up our material desires. Okay? There is a verse in the 11th canto where Lord Krishna is speaking to Sri Uddhava, and Krishna tells him that badhyamanopi mad bhakto vishayer ajitendriya. Vishayer ajitendriya means not one what? Vishaya, that my desires. I have not fully conquered my material desires. But still, by being a pragalbhaya bhakta. So the next line is praya pragalbhaya bhakta. So pragalbhaya bhakta means one who's sincere in bhakti. Vishaye na bhuyate. Those material desires, they don't discourage it. So what that verse is, let me just pull it up. Actually, this is a good verse for us to look at. Give me 1 second. It's 11th canto, 14th chapter. This is the 14th chapter where Lord Krishna is speaking. Let me see if I can find where it is. Yeah, this one. So 11:14:8. Badhyamanopi mad bhakto vishayer ajitendriya praya pragalbhaya bhaktya vishayer nabhibhuyate. My dear Uddhav, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires, but because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. So material desires can discourage us, but they cannot defeat us. Defeat only happens when we give up. If we keep fighting, no problem. Krishna accepts us as his own. Again and again, Krishna says, my devotee. I showed you that verse 11, 20, 27, and 28. There also Krishna says, Jato Shraddhamat Kathasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmashu. My devotee. Here also he is calling us my devotee. I have not conquered my material desires, but I'm sincere in my bhakti to the best of my capacity. So I am a devotee. That's, if you go back to our discussion on who's a pure devotee. Ripe mango, raw mango, you're still a mango. So you're still a pure devotee, but Krishna is saying, yeah, okay, that's fine. You've not conquered your senses yet, that's fine. But you'll not be defeated. We'll only be defeated when we give up. That's the thing. So, and then how do we do that? By under the effect of a bona fide spiritual master. So we'll soon be freed from these material desires, even though right now it seems that I'll not be. But if I keep fighting, then it becomes where's that verse? Seventh canto. There's a verse where was it seventh canto? Or was it eighth canto? Let me see. One, where there is the story of Gajendra. Yes, let me tell you one point from there, which I wanted to show you. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport in there. I think it's the 30th verse, if I'm right. Is it 8:330 or 8:230? Let's see. Here, yes, 8:230. This is a very good verse, but I'll go to the purport. Um, the Prabhupada says, where is that? I was just looking for. So what this verse tells us, that the crocodile, being an animal of the water, his enthusiasm, physical strength, and sensual power continued to increase because he was an animal of the water, whereas it continued to decrease for the elephant, Gajendra. So how Prabhupada translates this for us, that here, so okay, if he is very much agitated sexually, he should go to the ashram where sex is allowed, namely Grihastha ashram. That one has been found to be very weak in one place does not mean that he should stop fighting the crocodile of Maya. One should take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, as we shall see Gajendra do, and at the same time, one can be a grasta if he is satiated, if he is satisfied with sexual indulgence. There is no need to give up the fight. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore recommends Thane Sita Shruti Gatam Tanuvan Manobhi. One may stay in whichever ashram is suitable for him. It is not essential that one takes sannyas. If one is sexually agitated, he can enter the Grihastha ashram. But one must continue fighting. See, Prabhupada is repeating the same thing twice. So what Prabhupada is telling us, that we should not give up fighting and continue to do discharge devotional service under the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, and soon we will be freed from all these material desires. So it's a very good proposition for all of us. Okay, and then further on, we're talking about renunciation. We have talked about renunciation. I've talked about in the past what is Falgu and Yukta Vairagya, right? So Falgu, there's a Falgu river, as you all know about it, that on the surface, it looks like it's just sand, there is nothing, but just underneath the surface, the water is flowing. So externally, so what that means is externally person looks renounced, but internally a lot of desires are there. You scratch a bit and the ahankar comes out. So that is Falgu Vairagya. Falgu means showing off. It's a show bottle devotee. Okay. And for us as grastas, all of us are grastas. So for grastas, devotional service Vairagya means following the four regulative principles and not doing atyahara, as we read in the Nectar of Instructions. That's a very simple way of looking at it, right? So Vairagya basically means that whatever you do, you can live in a big house, you can live in a small house, no problem. But the intention behind it should be service to Krishna. Once there was this rich businessman, he came to meet Prabhupada and he bought a big suitcase full of cash. Prabhupada opened it and Prabhupada's eyes lit up. He became very happy. And all the people sitting there, they suddenly started thinking, oh, what kind of a sannyasi is this? He's becoming excited upon looking at money. But that within a minute, then what Prabhupada did was he called all his disciples and he divided the money. You take this money for book distribution. You take this money for repairing the temple. You take this money for prasadam distribution. And within a few minutes, all the money was gone. The suitcase was empty. And then people realized that Prabhupada is not a show bottle devotee. He's not a Falgu Vairagya. He's doing Yukta Vairagya. He knows how everything has to be used for Krishna's service. Right? So whatever we do, whether it's living in a one-bedroom apartment or whether living in a 10-bedroom bungalow, the essence should be that we are able to use it for Krishna's service. Right? Then it means Vairagya. Right? I might have given you the example of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi is Vrishabhanu in the spiritual world. Vrishabhanu is the father of Radharani. So if there's a story where Gadadhar Pandit goes to meet him, and Gadadhar Pandit sees Pundarik Vidyanidhi being, fully living a very lavish lifestyle, silk dress and, nicely perfumed dresses. His bed was, silk bed sheets and very comfy pillows and so forth. He was living a very flamboyant lifestyle. But the moment he hears the name of Krishna, Pundarik Vidyanidhi loses his consciousness. He suddenly becomes crazy, like as if, where is Krishna? So he was living opulently, yet he was an exalted devotee. So Vairagya means using it for Krishna service. It doesn't mean that we live like a pauper, live simple. If it's needed, if you're inviting rich people to your house and you want to in one way give them bhakti, you cannot live in a one-bedroom apartment. You have to live in a fancy big single family home so that you can invite those rich people and then slowly push the bhakti coin somewhere and make them devotees. So all that is yukta vairagya. Okay. So that is renunciation. That's what is being explained here. And then Prabhupada and they continue to tell how in some places there was once this sannyasi at the same time somewhere around Prabhupada who one night he couldn't sleep and he continued to think, oh, why can't I sleep today? Why can't I sleep today? So he called his disciples. The disciples looked everywhere and they said, well, what's going on, Gurudev? What's happening? And then they found that there was a coin under his bed. And he said, oh, I can't sleep because there is money around me. I don't want money at all. And Prabhupada would laugh at him. He says, that's not renunciation. That's artificial renunciation. You're living in this world, you need money, but use that money for Krishna's service, not for yourself. So that was a show bottle devotee. Okay, so let's see what else he's saying. Okay. Yes, okay. So yes, Jnana and Vairagya are not needed, but that does not mean we give up the principles of discharging devotional service or neglect abiding by the rules and regulations prescribed therein. In the neophyte stage of devotion, one must follow all the principles regulated by the authority of the spiritual master. The acceptance and rejection of things should always be in pursuance of devotional principles, not that one can independently manufacture some idea of what should be accepted or rejected. Right? So this particular passage that we just read, it underscores the necessity of strict adherence to the rules and regulations of devotional service, especially in the early stages of our journey. Right? We should not independently determine what should be accepted or rejected in bhakti. We have to go and take reference of the proper authority. So bhakti is not an arbitrary self-directed process. It is a siddhanta, it's a principle, it's an established system which has been passed down through a parampara. Advanced devotees may have deep realizations, right? And then they can apply scriptural understandings, principles in a different way. But we as beginners, we as sadhaka bhaktas, we have to strictly adhere to the prescribed path. And that's, again, going back to the guidance of the spiritual master and avoiding independent speculation. Then we remain on the safe and progressive path towards devotion. So, yes, we need that. The spiritual master must never be carried away by an accumulation of wealth or large number of followers, right? So, as I just told about Prabhupada, right? That he received that money and so he used it for the right purpose. And let's see what else is Prabhupada saying. There is a story of Narad Muni and that hunter Mrigari. And what else is there? Okay, there are concrete examples of how a devotee discharged. There are nine things, right? We have talked about those. Shravana Kirtana, Smarana Vandana, Shravana Kirtana, Smarana Vandana, Pad Sevana, Dasyare, Atma Nivedan. So those are nine paths to it. So those 9 paths we have discussed. So Prabhupada is saying there is a concrete example of how devotee discharge one of these services of those 9 and achieve perfection. And here Prabhupada is referring a verse which says, Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshida Bhavad. There's a verse which gives those 9 paths, and it gives devotees who have perfected those paths. See, let's look at that. But give me a minute. I have to find where that verse is. We can quickly look at that verse. I know it's been quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, somewhere in Madhya Leela, probably where Mahaprabhu is talking about. Let's see if we can find it. 22 is that verse where he's talking to Rupa Goswami. Let's see. Where is that? Vishnu, or I think it's spelled differently. Oh, yeah, this is the verse. Okay. This is chapter Madhya Leela 22, 136. Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshida Bhavad Vayasakhi Kirtane Prahlada Smarane Tadangri Bhajane Lakshmi Prathu Pujane Akrurastra Vibandhane Kapipatir Tasete Sakhya Arjuna Sarva Swatma Nivedana Valirabhut Krishnapti Reshampara. So all different devotees are given. Parikshit Maharaj, he was Shravan. Shravan is Parikshit. Vayasakhi is Sukdev Goswami. Kirtan, he's recited the Bhagavatam. Prahlad, Smarane, remembering, right? Then Lakshmi was Angari Bhajane. So she's doing, Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune, serving lotus feet of Krishna. Then Prithu in Puja. Okay? Akruras in Abhivandana, Vandana, prayer. Dase Kapipati, Hanuman. And Sakhya, Arjuna. And then everything in Bali Maharaj. Sarva Swatma Nivedan. So Bali Maharaj did all the 9 together. So that's referred to here. Prabhupada is going to explain this verse here, giving all the names of Akrura, Bali Maharaj. And then he'll talk about the story of Ambarish Maharaj. We know that story. We'll go on to that. And okay, and this is the end? Yes, okay. So Rupa Goswami ends with a statement, because this is the last statement in Vaidhi Bhakti. Srila Rupa Goswami says that regulative principles of devotional service are sometimes described by authorities as path of serving the Lord in opulence. Okay, so this is an interesting point that he ends with, that the nature of Vaidhi Bhakti, or devotional service that follows rules and regulations, is often described as serving the Lord in opulence. Why? Because it emphasizes awe and reverence and the majestic aspect of Krishna. It doesn't, Vaidhi Bhakti does not recommend spontaneous loving intimacy. I don't have any spontaneous loving intimacy towards Krishna. I'm just following the Vaidhi Bhakti, the principles that have been given to us by Prabhupada. I'm just following that, right? Because Vaidhi Bhakti, a devotee worships the Lord with a sense of duty. We follow scriptural injunctions. We see Krishna as the supreme controller. But this is different than spontaneous devotion, where people see Krishna out of a deep affection. Okay? So then we do deity worship, right? Archana, that we offer Krishna rich clothes, ornaments, so on and so forth. So that's an opulence. Okay? And in Golok Vrindavan, on the contrary, there is spontaneous devotion. Cowherd boys, they jump on Krishna's shoulder, right? They don't follow any scriptural injunctions because their love just flows naturally. But then we have to understand that Vaidhi Bhakti is a very crucial stepping stone to developing that higher stage of spontaneous devotion, Raganuga Bhakti. Right? So, but then the difference, as I mentioned, it's more of Krishna's opulent manifestation rather than his most intimate pastime. And it is needed. Vaidhi Bhakti is essential because it provides structure and discipline. When we keep following the rules of devotional service with sincerity, my heart will become purified, and over time, a natural affection will develop towards Krishna. And then I can move into Raganuga Bhakti. Okay. And then the thing is that that this progression from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti happens through absorption. Okay, this was something I heard from recently last Saturday. Actually, Harinam Kirtan Prabhu was giving a class on Saturday morning, Bhagavatam class, and he was referring to a class given by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, where somebody was asking His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj that if you had to explain Krishna consciousness in one word, what would you call it? And Maharaj said, absorption. And I really like that, and that the concept that absorption is the most important thing for us to grow in bhakti and also progress from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raga Bhakti. Okay. So keep that in mind. Absorption is very important. Okay, I think this is the end of the chapter. Okay, I'll take a pause here. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
What was that CC of the Madhya? What number?
For the nine ways of devotion.
The one you just talked, yeah, the 9 things of devotion.
So that's yes, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse number 136. Those are 9 ways by which 9 devotees who are doing bhakti to the perfection by picking up each path.
Prabhuji, can you elaborate on this absorption to grow in bhakti and progress from Vaidhi to Raganuga? What exactly we are talking about absorption? Absorption of getting the...
That's a good question. Yes, that's a good question. Let me give it a thought. How to present it. So absorption in bhakti occurs at multiple levels, evolving as a devotee matures spiritually. So I'll give some thoughts. I am a neophyte devotee. So for me, absorption means focusing on the what, why, and how of devotional service. Right now, I have noticed many a times, morning, because I do Aarti every morning, sometimes my mind is completely not there. I might do the whole Aarti and my mind is somewhere else because I've become so used to it. So that's lack of absorption. So if I have to be like, what am I doing? Okay, let's just take the example of my morning Aarti. What am I doing? I'm doing Aarti. Why am I doing it? So I should know the basic principles behind Aarti. Okay, Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu Khambano Buddhi Revacha Ahankara Ityamte Din Prakarishtada. So those 8 items, when I do Aarti, I'm including those 8 items in my bhakti, in my Aarti process. For example, when say Bhumi, earth, right? So earth, that incense that you give. Then there is water that you, right? Water obviously we give. Then so those are 5 items. Then there is what's that? Kham, mano, mind, intelligence, and ego. So how am I giving mind, intelligence, and ego? When I'm paying my obeisances, I'm giving up my ego. I'm accepting myself as lower than Krishna. I'm just accepting myself as servant. I'm giving my mind by being present there, by singing that Aarti. My intelligence, I am trying to sing. Okay, yes. What am I singing? Sansar Davana Nalilida Loka. Right? This is always like a fire, forest fire. And that one day Guru Shri Charana Arvind, I'm paying my obeisances to my Guru. So that is the why part. And how, right? How to do it. It's not like I can just wake up the morning, not brush, and just go, oh yeah, let me do Aarti. No. Absorption. So those are the 3 aspects for a neophyte devotee like me. But then, as I was saying, it could be at multiple levels, right? For example, a Madhyama Bhakta, who's an intermediate devotee level, they actually begin to relish chanting, hearing, and deity worship, rather than doing them as duties like what I am doing. So their absorption shifts from an intellectual understanding, which a neophyte devotee does, to a deeper emotional connection with Krishna. They develop a strong faith, Nishtha comes, right? And they have an emotional engagement in Krishna's pastime. So their absorption includes a deep contemplation on Krishna's pastimes and qualities. Okay. Then the Uttama Bhakta. For a Uttama Bhakta, their absorption is spontaneous love. There's raga, right? So that absorption goes beyond external practices and intellectual understanding. Their consciousness is fully immersed in Krishna all the time. They no longer see anything separate from Krishna. So they have become, how they say like you call it, right? When you keep boiling the milk, it actually ends up being a very thick rabdi, they call it in India. It becomes very, very thick. So our absorption also becomes very, very thick as we grow in our bhakti, when we go from a neophyte to an uttama devotee. So for a pure devotee, they may appear externally engaged, but they are fully absorbed. Their consciousness is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, in bhakti, and they are doing all their services effortlessly. As they do, as we breathe, that's how they are doing their services effortlessly. So those are the three levels of devotional of absorption. So if I just summarize them, neophyte is focused on the mechanics, right? Am I pronouncing properly when I'm chanting? Am I focusing on the sound, right? Intermediate devotee, he develops deep appreciation. Krishna's name is not different from him. Chanting is my lifeline. I feel Krishna's presence in my heart. Advanced devotee, complete absorption in pastimes, right? They feel separation from him. They chant out of pure love and so forth. So those are the levels of absorption, and we can pick accordingly where we are.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for explaining. And one more thing was there, Prabhu. You mentioned about chapter 7, right? And how the 8 element we offer during our prayers. So
Yeah.
is it mentioned in the purport? Somehow I just would have missed it.
No, it's not mentioned in the purport. Many years ago, I heard it from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I have it written down somewhere. I can post it in the group. I have a document that gives the details of that.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
What each item means.
Because
So
I know about the 4 element, but I was not sure about how do we say the 5th element, ether. How do we offer that, Prabhu? Fire we offer through Aarti, water we do, flowers we do, essence we do. But how do we do that ether part?
I don't remember on top of my head. I can send
Because I
you that.
keep thinking about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing that, because it was always there in my mind. But how? Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Prabhu.
No, we should know all this. Otherwise, that absorption is missing, right? I'm just doing it as a ritual. Well, obviously, that's also good. It's not that there's any damage to it, but the more we get absorbed, the faster the progression happens, and we are able to move forward in our bhakti in a better way. So, yes. Okay. Any more thoughts before we jump on to the next chapter?
Yes, Prabhu, you explained it so well about the absorption, so that the curiosity has increased so much. So, is it a possibility that you can send any kind of text or literature online for us to contemplate upon?
Contemplate upon how to be absorbed, you mean?
Yeah, how to be absorbed. I mean, this was really, really very nice, and I really want to know and then put my mind in there, in absorption. So that's why it got my
Sure.
attention.
What I can do, Mataji, I can just kind of summarize what I spoke. I can probably write it down on a document and send it out. Yes, I can do that. I
Yes,
can do that.
Prabhu, because this is really very, very important, because we should know what we are doing and how to assimilate that in ourselves, And
Yes, sure.
also, one more thing was that when I was reading this purport with you, there was one sentence that came that when Krishna says that you can only understand me through devotional service. And the thought came to me that the devotional service is that 9 process of bhakti that we have to follow. Those are the stepping stones. And towards the end, you cleared that they are just the stepping stone.
Yeah.
Actual bhakti begins afterwards, like the raganu
Raganuga.
bhakti, and then again there is many more steps up in there. So also that was way. Otherwise, I was going to ask you a question that I'm confused. What is devotional service, Prabhu?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you explained it so well, so that doubt was clear. Thank you for clearing that one.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, let's jump on to the next chapter. As I mentioned earlier, and which I had shown in the slide also, probably I'll just jump back to the slide, quickly show that again. Sadhana Bhakti was divided into up to 16 chapter. So the 2 to 14 is Vaidhi Bhakti, and now 15th and 16th chapter is Raganuga Bhakti. And we'll talk a bit about Raganuga Bhakti in this chapter, and we'll also see there's a verse, a very good, important verse that Rupa Goswami from Bhagavatam, he brings out. There's a discussion between Narada Muni and I think Yudhishthira Maharaj. So we'll see that. We'll do 16 in the next class, not today, but 15, yes, we will do. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out here, which I realized today itself when I was going through this. This is what I picked up. This is a document coming from Vedabase. This is Vedabase actually. I just copy pasted it here. There it says Raganuga, but when I went back and checked the actual book, Nectar of Devotion, it says Ragatmika. So just wanted to point this out before I actually get into the chapter and the philosophy. So even if you have a book, a hard book in your house, you will go back and check and you will see that in this 15th chapter, it's not Raganuga, it's a misprint. It's actually Ragatmika. Okay. So that for some reason, I don't know why they have not fixed on database or they're in the process or something. I don't know
What
what's
did
going
you say? Raga?
Ragatmika.
Ragatmika. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, we briefly touched upon this, I think, once in the Bhagavad Gita discussion. I don't remember, but I'll just explain that briefly. I'll walk you through some verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita where Mahaprabhu gives us the difference between Raganuga and Ragatmika. So, but first let's look at this paragraph so that we understand what it is. Examples of spontaneous devotional service can easily be seen in Krishna's direct associates in Vrindavan. The spontaneous dealings of the residents of Vrindavan in relationship with Krishna are called Ragatmika. Okay, I'm correcting that. These beings don't have to learn anything about devotional service. They are already perfect in all regulative principles and have achieved the spontaneous loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, the cowherd boys who are playing with Krishna do not have to learn by austerities or penances or yogic practice how to play with him. They have passed all tests of regulative principles in their previous lives, and as a result, they are now elevated to the position of direct association with Krishna as his dear friend. Their spontaneous attitude is called Ragatmika Bhakti. Okay? So I just wanted to read this so that you know. So Ragatmika, where is that? What am I looking for? Okay. But let's take a step back. Difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga. So we are reading Raganuga, but this description is about Ragatmika. I'll give you a difference between both of them so that we're clear. Vaidhi Bhakti, the instructions are coming from Vidhi. Vidhi means a process. There's a rule there, a scriptural rule. Raganuga Bhakti, the impetus is coming from within. It's one's own inspiration. So that's the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. So first I'm giving you this broad difference. So just keep that in mind. Now, we will see what is Ragatmika and Raganuga. Now we'll look at that difference. Okay. So I'll take you through some verses. Let me pull those up. It comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, 22nd chapter itself, I think, but it's, is it 22nd? I think it's 22nd. It comes later on, chapter, verse number, let's see, 150. Okay, yes, I think we hit the right point. This is Mahaprabhu speaking to Rupa Goswami. When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to one's natural inclination to love him, and is fully absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, that state is called transcendental attachment, and devotional service, according to that attachment, is called Ragatmika, or spontaneous devotional service. Okay, so that's Ragatmika. It's spontaneous devotional service. The primary characteristic of spontaneous love is deep attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Absorption in thought of him is a marginal characteristic. So that, just imagine that at that point, they're so absorbed in Krishna that there's nothing else to think about. So there's no concept of absorption also. You mean you get absorbed in something when you have something to get dissolved in also, right? Something to take you away from that absorption. But when there is 100% absorption, so there's only absorption, nothing else there. And then it says, This thus devotional service which consists of raga, deep attachment, is called ragatmika, spontaneous loving service. If a devotee covets such position, he is considered to be most fortunate. Okay, so let's see now what the other part is. If one follows in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, out of such transcendental covetousness, he does not care for the injunctions or reasoning of Shastra. That is the way of spontaneous love. Okay, now let's look at the next verse. Devotional service in spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested by the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So this first sentence is about Ragatmika Bhakti. Okay. Now the second sentence is devotional service that accords with their devotional service. Who there? The residents of Vrindavan, Golok Vrindavan. That is called Raganuga Bhakti. So the word Anuga means to follow. So who are we following in Raganuga Bhakti? When we are in Raganuga Bhakti, who are we following? The devotees who are in Ragatmika Bhakti, who are pure devotees, like Yashoda Maya. We can talk of Krishna's intimate friends, Subal, Madhumangal, Subal. So we can follow them. Right? Gopis, they are different gopis. So I am a Raganuga Bhakta if I am following one of those, if my devotional service is spontaneous in the nature that I'm following them. Okay. So that devotional service is called Raganuga. So, and then what those pure devotees are doing in Golok Vrindavan, that's Ragatmika. They don't have to go through any purification like I am going. Right? They don't have to go through that. They are because this material world is created and destroyed, spiritual world has existed forever. So they have been there, they have always been liberated and in Golok Vrindavan. So they are Nitya Siddhas. And some are Sadhana Siddhas, who by their endeavor and devotional service, they can attain position. But then there are some positions that can never be attained. For example, Yashoda Maya is only one. Nobody else can become Yashoda Maya. However, by following the devotional service of Yashoda Maya, I can go and become a gopi who serves Krishna as a mother. Right? But I can never become Yashoda Maya. Similarly, Krishna has some very intimate friends. I named two, Subal, Madhumangal. There are a couple of others that Srimad Bhagavatam talks of. I can never become Madhumangal. I can never become Subal. But by my devotional service, I can go and become an associate of Krishna, a friend of Krishna, other than these. So just keep that picture in mind. That Ragatmika devotees, it's not like I will go and take place of those Ragatmika devotees. I can come in that loving mood, but not take their place. Yes, Sati Alveli Mataji.
So Prabhuji, like Subri Mataji, the nurse Putna, right? So I know Putna is in the other direction, but like Subri Mataji, who waited for Ram Bhagwan for till her basically her end of her life, right? To see her, so she doesn't feel full Yashoda Maiya's foot or life, right? But she's close to it, like you said, right?
Yes, she's in a motherly mood. Yes, so she has that full Vatsalya Bhav fully manifesting towards the Lord. Yes. So sorry, what your question? What was your question?
So like you said that nobody would fill Yashoda Maiya's role, right? But I guess like you said, you would get close to it, like Subri Mataji, right?
Yes. So when we go back to Goloka, it's not, if you read the Bhagavatam, and so it's not like Krishna only drinks Mother Yashoda's milk. No, he drinks. There are so many gopis that they can come and feed Krishna, so they can have a motherly relationship with Krishna. Sometimes many gopis would get angry on Krishna. Sometimes they would run after him in anger, just like Yashoda Maiya does. So they will fulfill their deep desire of loving Krishna as a child. That will always be there. What I meant to say was that there are some devotees who have eternally been in Golok Vrindavan. It's not like they came to this material world, purified themselves, and then went to Vrindavan, Golok. And Yashoda Maya is one of them. So nobody's going to become a Yashoda Maya. But surely many devotees can go and become loving motherly relationship with Krishna. They can have that. Did that make sense, Madhu?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. That kind of raises another question. So those devotees, those super close devotees to Krishna Bhagwan, like Yashoda Maya, right? Like Lalita Sakhi and the eight Sakhis. So they like never leave Vrindavan? They're always there?
Never leave Vrindavan? In what sense do you mean they never leave Vrindavan? When Krishna comes to the material world, all these devotees come with him,
Okay,
right? Yashoda Maya was here when Krishna came.
right.
So they do come with him. And it's not like, so see, understand, it's not that I as a material being can only be in one place at a time. But Krishna doesn't have to do that. He can be in a million places at the same time. Similarly, with all these pure devotees, they can be in a million places at the same time. It doesn't mean that if Krishna was in this material world, there was nobody up in Golok Vrindavan. There, the Leelas are running 24/7. They are not stopping there.
Mhm.
But Krishna also comes in this material world. All his loved ones also come here. Yashoda Maya comes here. The only purpose being to teach us living entities the loving relationship to Krishna. Anugraha bhaktanam manushantanamashita. Anugraha bhaktanam, to have mercy on devotees in this material world. All these other devotees come. It's not, but that doesn't mean that they have become influenced by this material world. That never happens.
Okay.
I come under the influence of this material world, not them.
But they have a permanent place there, right?
Yes, they have a permanent place. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Prabhuji. That clears
You're
it up.
welcome.
Haribol.
Yes, they have a permanent place there. Nobody takes there. And I just wanted to give you that nuance that we can become a friend of Krishna, but I won't become Subal or Madhu Mangal. But I can still be a friend of Krishna. Huh? He has thousands of friends. Similarly, gopis, right? There are so many gopis. And then those gopis have manjaris. So manjaris are those who serve the gopis, who kind of serve gopis to serve Krishna. Like they are serving the gopi. Like, for example, Rupa Goswami is a manjari in Golok Vrindavan. Right? So he's serving Krishna through a gopi. Right? So, but then there are some 8 primary gopis, right? Lalita, Sakhi, Vishaka, and those 8 gopis. Nobody can become those gopis. But yes, you can become other gopis and serve Krishna in the same way. So I just wanted to highlight that. So by Raganuga Bhakti, I can become a gopi or a Vatsalya Bhav or a Sakhya Bhav, but I will not replace some permanent devotees who are already there. That's never going to happen. I was just stressing on that point, just so that it's clear to us. Okay. So now, hopefully, it's all clear to all of you what is Raganuga and Ragatmika. So I'm hoping. Let's go back to our chapter and see what Prabhupada is saying there. Where's the chapter? Okay. So, yes, Ragatmika Bhakti. And let me see what is Prabhupada. I think we'll come to that later, but there are two things. Okay, so yes, he's saying it right here. So that Ragatmika Bhakti is divided into 2 parts: sensual attraction and relationship. Okay, there are two things that he's dividing into. But before we go into that, Rupa Goswami and Prabhupada will walk us through one very beautiful verse which comes in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse number 30. So I'll pull that up quickly and show you that verse. It's 7:1:30. This is Narad Muni speaking to Yudhishthir Maharaj. Okay. So this says, Kamad Dveshad Bhayat Snehad Yatha Bhakteshwara Manaha Aveshya Tadagam Hitva Bahavas Tad Gatim Gataha. Many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires. Keep these in mind, there are 5 ways that are being talked about here. Lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection, or devotional service. So there are 5 ways by which people have attained liberation. Who are the examples of those 5? You'll be told in the next verse. Gopeya Kamad. So gopis by their lusty desires, by their intense desire to love Krishna. Kamsa by bhaya, fear. Okay? And then Dvesha. Dvesha means by envy. Who's by envy? Chaydadyo Nripaha. Chaydadyo means Shishupal is one of them that we referred to here. Sambandha Vrishneya. So Vrishni dynasty, Krishna was born in the Vrishni dynasty. Sambandha, they were all relatives to Krishna. So they all were liberated. Vrishni is the Yadavas. Sneha Yuyam. Yuyam means you. You means the Pandavas. He's pointing to Pandavas. You, by Sneha, by that affection Krishna has for you, you are liberated. And then he says, Bhaktya Vayam Vibho. So Bhaktya means devotion. He's considering himself, Narad Muni. So saying people like me by devotional service. So 5 ways by which people have attained liberation. Let me see. I think I had put them in a list in my slide just so that it makes it easy. Okay, so yes. Lusty desires in gopis, fear in Kansa, envy in Shishupal, family relationship by the Yadavas, affection in Pandavas, and devotional service in Narad. Devotional service in Narad. Okay, so there's 6 ways actually, not 5. Okay, so we are being told in this chapter here, now what the way the discussion will go is, after Prabhupada has been talking about this, he will tell us that, let me see if I have highlighted that part somewhere. Yeah, let me just discuss it rather than going through it. So we have those people, right? So there is gopis, there is, so let's break these up into parts. Okay, there is fear and envy. Okay, fear is Kansa, envy is Shishupal. Okay, so Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, they are going to completely reject that as Raganuga Bhakti. It's not spontaneous devotion. They are not genuine forms of spontaneous devotion. Why? As we have read in the past, Bhakti has to be Anukul. Okay? Anukul Bhakti is the right form. These are not Anukul, they're not favorable Bhakti if they are doing it out of fear and envy. So these two are rejected. Prabhupada will say this in the, where was that? Prabhupada will say that. Here, the extraction of Kamsa to Krishna in fear, Kamsa to Krishna in fear, and attraction of Shishupal in envy is not accepted as devotional service because their attitudes are not favorable. They are not. So because their attitudes are not favorable. So that's the first part to understand. Fear and envy. Then comes the devotional service of Narada Muni, which is the last topic we talked about, right? Which is Bhakta Vayam, right? This one. That's devotional service of Narada Muni. So Prabhupada will tell us, and even Rupa Goswami, they're going to tell us that Narada's attachment to Krishna is called bhakti. It's devotion, right? That Narad's devotional service, Narada Muni's devotional service arises from a sense of duty. Thus, it is a part of Vaidhi Bhakti, and it necessarily cannot be counted among the genuine forms of Ragatmika Bhakti. It cannot be counted because it's coming out of a sense of duty. He's doing that, right? Then comes Pandavas. So the Pandavas have an affection towards Krishna. Now, there's a bit of a gray area here. The Pandavas' affection can or cannot be as a Ragatmika Bhakta. They may or may not be, right? Because if their bhakti is mixed with awe and reverence, then it cannot be Ragatmika, right? It's not spontaneous because there is some amount of awe and reverence, right? So because if we all know, right, when Arjun comes to know that Krishna is is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the 10th chapter, he says that oh, I have sat on the same bed with you. I put my feet on you as if you are my friend. So he feels that, oh my God, I have to be more reverential towards you. So there is some that reverence, it introduces some restraint, and it brings an etiquette which hinders Ragatmika Bhakti, right? As we all know, if you notice, Radharani never puts a tilak. Why? Because as devotees, we put tilak to indicate that I'm putting Krishna's feet on my head. But when Radharani puts it, it hinders between the loving relationship between Krishna and Radharani. So Radharani even rejects that. He said, no, if Krishna is not able to enjoy loving relationship with me completely, then I don't want this tilak on my head. Who cares? So she's at that level. Obviously, we are nowhere close. But so see how fine the distinct differences are. So affection also can or cannot be Ragatmika Bhakti. However, the two forms that I have mentioned about was lusty desires and kinship. Okay. So lusty desire is kama, right? And family is sambandha, right? So supposedly there are genuine types of ragatmika bhakti. And that's been confirmed by Rupa Goswami. That's the analysis that Rupa Goswami is doing in this chapter. That out of those 5-6 ways, which one are the correct ones? Now, before I go into more discussion about lusty details or lusty desires, somebody can ask this question that if the verse tells us, the verse that we just read, that Gopi by lusty desire, Kamsa by fear, Shishupal by envy, Yadus by family, what did they do? They've obtained the mercy of the Lord. Now, if Kamsa also gets the mercy of the Lord, Shishupal also gets it. What's the use of gopis being so intense and just leaving their family and so forth? So that question comes, and Prabhupada explains this. Rupa Goswami also explains this, where they clearly say that Prabhupada talks about the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan concept, and then he says that devotees like Kamsa or Shishupal attain only to Brahman effulgence. They cannot go to Paramatma or Bhagavan. That is the distinction. Whereas the other devotees, they all attain the Bhagavan feature of Krishna. They go Golok Vrindavan. Right? And then Prabhupada gives the analogy of the sun and sunshine that, you can be in the sunshine but not in the sun. So Kamsa and Shishupal are in the sunlight, but they're not in the sun. They're not allowed to enter Vaikuntha. So that's the difference that happens. Okay. And then, so again, Prabhupada is going to keep explaining that concept, that how they will be in Brahm Jyoti. They will not be a part of the of Golok Vrindavan. Okay. So raga means spontaneous attraction. Yes, Mataji. Appeal billion.
Prabhuji, so do they ever get out of that zone of not being able to attain Krishna?
So, Mataji, in Brahma Jyoti, there is no service. Okay, so there is no way to purify oneself.
Achha.
So it's hard for them to stay there just on the basis of their, meditation or introspection or speculation. It's very hard to live. And we all need some form of a relationship. Just if I give you an analogy, if somebody puts me, and actually there was people have done this experiment, that if I put you in a house which has all the luxuries in the world, everything you want to eat, soft, plushy beds, but there is one thing that's missing. There is no human connection. You don't have a phone, you don't have internet, nobody comes into your house, nobody leaves your house, no bird, no animal, nothing. We will die. We won't be able to live in that house. Why? Because there is no relationship aspect. Similarly, in Brahma Jyoti, it might be a beautiful place, calmness, peaceness, bright light and everything. But if there is no relationship, we cannot stay there for a long time. We will crave for that relationship. And because of that craving, we will come back again to this world. And again, depending on our karma or depending on our desires or how we live that life, we might become a devotee or we might go back and again become impersonalist and again go back to that whole cycle. That's the concept.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji, for clearly explaining that.
You're welcome. Yes.
Prabhuji, one thing was there when we are meditating on the localized feature of the Lord, that is the Paramatma. Again, we go and merge with the effulgence, or where do we exactly go? The one who meditate on the Paramatma feature of the Lord. Brahman feature, I understood, Prabhuji, merging into the effulgence, but what about the Paramatma?
So the Paramatma feature is still an impersonal feature.
Okay.
Because
they also go in the Brahma Jyoti on.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I wanted to clearly say, all these people are extraordinary. We should never disrespect them. We should not look down upon them. They're very extraordinary people. Imagine it takes so much of endeavor to realize God's Krishna sitting in their hearts, or understanding that they have the divine within them, or to even become so renunciate that you give up everything. So these people are they have to be respected. But we all being a part of devotional practices, we understand that they still are under the pure devotional service of having of relating with the Bhagavan feature. But we should not disrespect them. that just keep that in thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
And Prabhupada, he always gives us through his own example. When Prabhupada was sick in 1969, there was this impersonalist who came to meet him. Prabhupada asked his own disciples to get up and give seat to him, to sit down. And Prabhupada gave full respect to him. And then Prabhupada used to live with this Dr. Mishra. When Prabhupada didn't have a place for himself, he would live with this impersonalist, Dr. Mishra. Prabhupada would cook for him. Prabhupada would feed him every day. And that person would not even let Prabhupada speak because he knew that Prabhupada was a personalist. He would talk about Krishna's form. But Prabhupada never disrespected him. And if you read the Prabhupada Leela Amrita, Dr. Mishra used to respect Prabhupada so much despite the differences. So there is respect, but then there's also difference in the principles and philosophy. Okay. So yes, so that's the impersonal feature. So that question comes, right? That how can Kansa and Shishupal achieve the same thing? They don't achieve the same thing, they go up to Brahmajyoti. So now coming to the main part, which is the lusty desires, right? Okay. Now that's one thing that will be talked about here also. So I'm going to cover that part. The lusty attitude here. Rupa Goswami is going to give us an explanation. And so to understand the difference between material lust, which is kama, and transcendental lust, right? We have to understand the very basic difference, right? That when we are in material world, the love that I think I'm doing is actually mixed with self-interest. When I say to somebody, I love you, I mean that I love you because you are satisfying my senses. That's what it means, right? That you are satisfying my senses. Oh, I like you because, oh yes, you think the way I would expect you to think. You eat the things that I would expect you to eat, right? If suddenly one day, if I'm a pure vegetarian and if somebody whom I say I love you, that person comes and says, oh no, I'm going to start eating chicken. I'm not going to love that person anymore because my vibes just suddenly got all messed up. So love in this world means it's mixed with self-interest. Whereas the lust of gopis or in the spiritual world, it's purely selfless. Right? So that's the difference. That's the basic difference between both of them. Right? In this material world, there is an intense thirst to satisfy my own senses. In the spiritual world, this same karma, that lust, becomes an intense thirst to satisfy Krishna's personal senses. Right? So that's so Prabhupada in this chapter he says that it's the devotee's excessive desire to serve the Lord. So that's the difference between mundane, worldly lust versus transcendental lust. Right? And that's the difficulty. People in this world don't understand the difference and they try to imitate Krishna here in this world, saying that, oh, Krishna can have so many girlfriends, why cannot I? But because we are not Krishna, and those are not girlfriends, those are pure devotees who are selflessly serving Krishna. So it's very hard to comprehend that. Right? So that is why prema is the topmost. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells us that prema and separation is the highest. So it becomes more and more esoteric. Not a part of a discussion for Nectar of Devotion, but yeah. So the conditioned soul, me, I tend to interpret things in the context of my own experience, right? As I was just saying, somebody sees Krishna and gopis dancing and embracing each other. I see that as lust because my heart is filled with lust, right? So when I hear the pastimes of Krishna and gopis, I misinterpret everything in the context of mundane lust. But a devotee who's pure, he will see these pastimes as a pure exchange of unalloyed love. He knows that the gopis' internal motivation is very different from the motivation of lovers in this material world. Right? And Prabhupada gives the example that iron and gold, that's the difference between material and spiritual lust. Right? There is selfish desire in material lust, there is selfless desire in spiritual lust. Right? So sometimes it might seem as if people are, or pure devotees are, they're acting in their own happiness, but actually they're doing it for Krishna's pleasure. Right? Sometimes we see Mother Yashoda running after Krishna. It's not that she's angry and she wants to beat Krishna. No, Krishna wants that loving relationship. He wants that motherly love to showered on her, on him. That's the love and relationship but it's very hard to understand in this material world, right? So gopis have this lusty desire. So right, so now going back to I was mentioning in this, so the 6 types of relationship have been shown. So fear, rejected, not a right way. It's not pure. Envy, not pure. Affection might or might not be pure. Narad Muni's, no, not there. The only is lusty desires and kinship, the family relationship of Yadava. That's supposedly the 2 most pure ones. So today we will discuss we are discussing the karma part. In the next class, we'll discuss the family relationships, right? So in this world, everything is based on a selfish desire. Friendships are based on benefits, mutual benefits. But on the contrary, spiritual world, the gopis have selfless love for Krishna, right? And even Prabhupada, being a pure devotee, he traveled to the West with no money, no material security at that age, simply to follow the order of his Guru Maharaj. He did not come for personal comfort, name, recognition, but he only came to serve Krishna. Right? So that's pure love, that's selfless service. Right? So when scholars compare gopis' love to lust, the only reason because English obviously is a language which is very limited in terms of its words. In Sanskrit, they even love has so many layers, right? So we have prem, we have sneha, sneh, and there are many 8. There are 8. There is a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that mentions those 8. Just like when we in India, when you make when you get sugar, right? Sugar cane. So first is sugar cane. Out of that, somebody extracts the sugarcane juice. Then somebody starts boiling it. Then you get this thick, very viscous kind of sugar. And then somebody converts it to jaggery. Then somebody even goes further and they convert it to mishri. Mishri is pure sugar. So there are very similarly, love also has so many different grades. But then English cannot explain that. So generally the word that is commonly used is lust. Okay. Did I have another slide here? Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, I had this slide, right? So Vaidhi Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti is primarily Sambandha Rupa and Kama Rupa. Oh, and there's one more. Yes. Okay. There's a paragraph for this one. Let me pull up and show you that paragraph. This talks about Kubja. You all might know the story of Kubja. Kubja actually had physical lusty desires towards Krishna. If you read the Bhagavatam, you will see that she was physically lusty of Krishna. She invited Krishna to her house, right, to enjoy Krishna. So it was almost lusty desire. So this is again a gray area, just getting more and more esoteric. So it's I put it here as lusty desire of gopis is kama rupa, whereas the almost lusty desire of Kubja is kama praya. That's the difference. Kama praya, here it's given. So it's almost lusty, but there's still some tinge of self-satisfaction. So that cannot be compared to the love of the gopis. So there is also fine tuning there. For us as devotees, as practicing devotees, it's good to have these concepts in mind. It's good to aspire for them. However, we also have to look at our own position. We sometimes, if it agitates us, we must, accordingly restrict ourselves. If these things, they agitate us. Oh, Krishna is dancing with gopis and he has his arm around her waist and so forth. If these things, they tend to disturb us, we should try to avoid them. We should not read them. Okay, that's fine. But Prabhupada has given us, and so he's given us in a way that so that when we read them in that devotional attitude, and when we read them in that devotional attitude, it purifies us. So if you read the last verse of the Rasalila, it says that it purifies us, whoever reads it in the right consciousness. But if we are not reading it in the right consciousness, it might actually make it worse. Right? It might make us more lusty. So we have to be cautious on that aspect also. As we are, or as I mentioned, practicing devotees. We are still in Vaidhi Bhakti. We are not in pure devotion. Yeah. Okay, so I think this chapter ends here. Any thoughts or comments? We have a few minutes.
So, Prabhuji, what is the destination of Kuksha, Kampraya type of devotees who have a tinge of real lust? It's not
It,
completely selfless love.
it's cleared by Krishna. So if you read the Bhagavatam, that episode of Kubja, when Krishna went to her house, so she invites Krishna to her house. Krishna goes, but just by Krishna's presence there, her that very tinge, that thing, it goes away. She becomes a pure devotee. So that happens. So similarly for us also, right? We are practicing, we keep on practicing. And Krishna from within our heart keeps cleaning all the dirt we have in our heart. So when we are sincere, strict, serious, and sincere, going back to that basic principle, Krishna takes active interest in cleaning us up and preparing us to go back home, back to Godhead. If you read the Brad Bhagavatamrita, Gopa Kumar, at the end, he reaches Golok Vrindavan. And there, what Krishna tells him, that where have you been, my dear friend? I've been waiting you for such a long time. And because you were not ready to come to me, I had to send one of my pure devotees to bring you back home. So when devotee is sincere, then Krishna will do everything to purify him and bring him back home, back to me. So she was purified, and she's. I don't know what her destination is. I've not read it in any scriptures, but I remember reading it in Bhagavatam that she gets purified just by seeing Krishna when he comes to her house. Initially, she had some desires.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for clarifying. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I was just wondering that there is all the different ways of love and affection are mentioned as a pure bhakti or raganuga bhakti. There's absence of one thing which was not there, that was das form of bhakti, like that of Hanuman, because he had so much of love and affection for Rama. So what kind of, what category it will fall into?
What category is Lord Ram? Is Ram?
Hanuman.
Hanuman, sorry. So Hanuman, we read this verse, no, Mataji? I read that verse to you. Where was this? That verse where it was saying Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshita Bhava.
No, that was mentioned as Dasya.
Yes, so he's a servant,
Dasya.
right? So Dasya mode.
Yeah. So what, I mean, form of bhakti that, I mean, in this description where, what is it? Like that of...
Oh, you mean whether it's Raganuga or not?
Yeah.
So see, so Hanuman is a pure devotee because he's serving the Lord in pure as a servant. So Dasya Bhav can also be there in Golok Vrindavan. Let's say, right, there are servants also to Krishna, right? We read about all of them in many different literatures. So as a Dasya also you can have a relationship with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that was your question, that in what form, or if your question had some other aspect to it.
So like it was said that some forms were not rejected and some forms were
Oh, you
still
mean
in
that?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's still because he's a pure devotee, Adaji. So there is Raganuga Bhakti there, right? So Raga means spontaneous attraction. It's so he has a spontaneous attraction towards Lord Ram as a servant would have towards his master. That's spontaneous for him.
Okay.
So there is Raganuga Bhakti there.
Okay. So that is not rejected. That kind of bhakti is not rejected.
No, it's not rejected. No, it's not rejected. No.
Yeah.
It is
Because
Raganuga or Ragatmika Bhakti, because you mentioned, right?
yeah, Ragatmika Bhakti. I'm sorry,
right?
because that word is written.
Relationship and attraction. So it will be
Yeah.
Ragatmika Bhakti, right?
Yeah, Ragatmika Bhakti, and like
And the one we follow, the Ragatmika Bhakti, is the Raganuga Bhakti, right? So
yeah,
in
even the affection of Pandava is considered to be in the gray area. So I was
gray
wondering
area, yes.
why.
So yeah. How you have to understand one thing, Ajit, that see, there is wherever there is a hindrance in the practice, hindrance in the sense that like, oh, there is something that's keeping you away or keeping you apart. Like, for example, Sanatan Goswami, when he was coming to meet Mahaprabhu, he had boils on his body. He didn't want to go and touch Mahaprabhu, right? But then Mahaprabhu comes and hugs him. So Mahaprabhu breaks down all those barriers that were coming between a devotee and the Lord. So as long as those barriers are there, they become a hindrance towards the bhakti. It's not spontaneous because you have to stop yourself. Oh, no, I cannot do this because I am in awe and reverence. So that kind of, if that thought process comes, it doesn't become spontaneous. So wherever you see spontaneous bhakti, so that is acceptable. And I was just giving you a broader picture. So you can discriminate in this way.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we are at 8:30. If there's nothing else, I gave you that, and I know Shalini Mataji, she asked for those questions. I'm just finalizing them.